Welcome to the HuskGuys podcast. Oh, yeah!
What's up, Husker Nation? Welcome to the HuskGuys podcast. It's November 30th. We are 1 week out from the season. We're still reeling a little bit from, losing 4 straight games in absolutely disastrous fashion. Andrew's there. He's going to give us a little recap of his experience at Memorial Stadium, both the highs and the unbelievably catastrophic lows. We're going to talk a little bit about the letter grades we're going to give the Huskers for the season on offense, on defense, on special teams, rules first year, and then most importantly, we are entering our favorite time of year, the offseason, national championship period. We've got transfer portal stuff coming. We've got news. We've got updates. We've got new quarterbacks. We've got hot boards, all sorts of stuff. We're going to cover that all today. But first, it is Christmas season. It is time to start loading up. Pipeline jerky is blowing up right now. It is Christmas box season. We've made Christmas gift boxes for your friends, your family, your mom, your dad, son, your brother. Everybody can have a Christmas gift box. Pipeline jerkies. We got bags of jerky that go with the shirts, the hats, all sorts of really good stuff in those gift boxes. A ton of fun. We got some koozies and stuff that are going in there too. Pipeline jerky koozies. HuskGuysStore.com. If we die, we die. We got Sweet Hurts shirts, hats, 30% off right now. We got Run the Damn Bull. We got all sorts of good stuff that's going on right now for your Christmas shopping season. And then land-lore.com. Awesome has 10% off. Use HuskGuys10 for land-lore.com. Great skincare routine, good gifts for guys in particular, made in Omaha. It is a great gift. So with that, we're going to kick off. This is our season recap show. And it's November 30th. We are 1 week removed from the Iowa debacle. You were there.
Was I ever?
So, yeah. Should we talk about
it? Yeah. Well, every Husker fan has their routine. Everybody has, this is what we do. We tailgate here. We do this. We get into the game at this time. Everybody's always early. The stadium is packed before kickoff, but everyone's got their usual pregame thing. Little brother had a little bit of a mishap. He redirected us off course. Dad was already our dad. I mean, he was just already in a panic. We have to stay ready for it. Yeah, and we went out of the way. We went to Gretna, and so the vibe was already getting off track. And it honestly, I don't know if it lost us the game.
What's in Gretna?
One of his friends. We had to pick a friend up. We got off track.
Oh my God!
We got off, and we missed half the band concert. Now we have to catch the band. The vibe was inconsistent. I would say that beforehand, and all the way through the third quarter, there was still a pretty good sense of optimism.
To back up, time out.
Yeah.
The routine was off from the start.
The routine was off. Yeah. And honestly,
do you think was it?
I could stop there. I knew that I had a pretty bad feeling. It was overall positive, but man.
Well, yeah, I mean, so if we just fix our routine,
you might as well. It might as well be over.
If we fix the routine, are we going bowling next year? Is that?
I think at least 10%, which we don't have much margin for error, but I would expect that 10% of that game gets cleaned up and improved if we made it for the band.
But you marched into the band. You marched in with the band, correct?
Marched in, okay. Led them down 10th Street. It was so cold. I mean,
looks cold.
You could hardly. Eyes were freezing over. The band sounded a little different. It was so cold that the sound waves were traveling a little bit differently. But the tubas were in key. That's always huge. Getting some good shouts for the tuba guys. They were bringing some pretty good energy there. I felt like, and the band was doing their part. The Pride of All Nebraska let us on into to Memorial Stadium. Had to take a new route. There's construction on campus, so
I mean, again, is again.
We might need to look into this. Is if the band's route is changed by construction, what's our win-loss record? Because I didn't know here. Yeah. So we're late catching the band. It's an 11 a.m. start. We didn't hear them tune up. I don't know how good they sounded before we got there.
Did you have Valentinos? Did you do anything right?
Follow them in. The Valentinos, lukewarm at best. I mean, again, a lot was pointing towards a Nebraska loss here. The Vals was hardly finishable. The crust was an icicle.
So this isn't just an issue of like Rule can't finish games. This is a program. This is a program-wide failure.
A losing. This is what happens.
This is a program. This is a culture issue. It's a culture issue.
Culture issue amongst all the way down to the cooks at Val's. And I was concerned. I was concerned. I would say I still thought we were going to win despite all of this, but the warning signs were there. And it couldn't have been more clear that the world was just off its axis a little bit there. But things that we can improve.
Wow, I didn't know any of this. This is news to me, and I'm not sure we should have a very good trend.
There was a lot of gloves. The
clapping's weird.
The clapping was weird. You can barely hear the clapping when there's gloves on.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that maybe throws the team's equilibrium off a little bit. It's like, are they clapping? Are they in sync or not? And if the fans aren't in sync, who's to say what's going to happen with the team? And so, it just sounds like muffled, like pats on the back, basically, when everyone's wearing winter gloves and clapping. I really didn't get that audible thump that I was hoping for during tunnel walk.
Okay, so jokes aside, I will say, were vibes high up until full meltdown, or was it like stress, or where were vibes at besides you screwing up everything about pregame?
Vibes were half down because of our dumb little brother, half down because we couldn't muster a single yard of offense on the ground. That
allegedly. Yeah.
And so the more and more we ran into this brick wall Iowa defense, the more it was down. Everything was back up basically after the Lloyd touchdown pass, because at that point it looked like Iowa had a little chink in the armor. Then we ended up tying it on a drive shortly later. When it was 10-10, I would say everyone was ready to chalk it up to say, this is it. We're gonna, like, Iowa can't score, they can't move the ball.
They didn't have a first down second half.
Yeah, until they needed one.
Until they scored the game-winning field goal.
Yep. And so, inside the stadium, the students were a little late on arriving. So
geez,
as far as like the vibe itself, I would say actually like it was same old stuff to begin the game. Then we get through the third quarter, we tie it up, end up pulling back 10-10 the fourth quarter. People are feeling good, lining up for the Albano field goal. 5 minutes left. Vibes could not have been higher.
He's a giant choke artist. Sorry, that guy. Like, I know everybody likes him because he's from Omaha, but like,
I think he's gonna be great. It's just that you talk about. That was a vibe murderer.
He finished
at that point. I think that there was a collective groan of like, "Oh my God, are we about to?"
He finished as the fourth worst kicker in the country.
Yeah. So not a dream start for his career.
What are we doing?
He's a freshman. His leg strength will only get better. He's already got a great leg. He already had a field goal over 50. It's just you can't
get the game
1 for 2.
He basically missed an important field goal in the Wisconsin game, in this game, Minnesota game. Basically any game we needed a field goal, he missed.
You gotta be, and we won the games where he was clutch. That was where things kind of started to hit the fan. Now, here's what we didn't expect to happen, like stadium-wise. I don't think people really expected, after we missed the Albano field goal, how many chances we were going to have to win the game. They together a few stupid Iowa plays that didn't work. No surprise there. We got the ball back. Then we gave it back to him again. Then they put together another terrible drive. Then we intercept the ball with 30 seconds left, and we got the ball on the 50. But
they didn't. If you look at their drives, it's unbelievable that you lost that game.
Yeah,
they went 3-and-outs.
We're just basically like, oh my God, we missed the field goal. Now we're gonna lose. And then we were like, oh, actually, okay, we've still got a chance. And then we gave it back to him again. Oh, we still have a chance. We just intercept the ball. We are in business. And it was completely unthinkable.
Their second half drives, 3-and-out.
Hold on.
3-and-out.
5 minutes though.
3-and-out. 4 straight 3-and-outs. The fifth drive was a 6-and-out. Sixth drive was an interception. So they had 5 3-and-outs and an interception.
Yeah.
And they beat
We
us.
had the ball for 11 minutes in the third quarter.
And they beat us.
We were controlling the play and everything up until 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. We really had flipped the game script, really.
Yeah. It's such a like the Tommy Hill interception is like, oh, we got this. The holding call screwed it. And then, I mean, it's so unbelievably impossible. We had the ball with the chance to win the game, 31 seconds left, and lost in regulation.
In regulation, yeah. Yeah, and I think that the collective groans were like not so much with our players. I think there's people that are just like, okay, you're on the 50, maybe you're on 45, 30 seconds left. Iowa's offense hasn't done anything. Do you just play for overtime?
No, we would have lost in overtime. I don't know.
I
no chance.
But wow,
we haven't scored in overtime in 15 years.
You saw what happened when we didn't.
I mean,
that was
so each of these games.
I think that people were like, "My gosh!"
Each of the last 4 finishes, I have like mostly aligned with the strategy they took to finish the game. I have been unbelievably shocked at the outcome every time. Like the Maryland game, I was like, yeah, you go for the win. I'm cool with that. Like, but to throw an interception on the goal line was shocking, right? Like this game,
well, it's like the last possible outcome that you could.
You can't even like it's, and I'm sure like
all of the possibilities, even if there's a 1% chance, we managed to find the 1% chance.
Yeah, I mean that linebacker that was sitting there in the Iowa game, like, what's you didn't see him? Like, it was like, it's just like he threw it right to him, like it hit him in a face mask. Like, what's like, how is that the pass he threw? I mean, it seemed like the Maryland pass, like 2 guys were wide open, and he threw it to the one guy like not wide open. Like the Wisconsin game,
classic way.
Each one, like I thought he managed the Wisconsin game to perfection. I would have managed that to a field goal. Everybody wanted them to throw, in the Wisconsin game to try to win in regulation. I wouldn't have done that. I would have done exactly what they did in the Iowa game. You push to win in regulation. But the colossal failure of all 4 of the last 4 games is like, it's just so beyond.
Yeah.
It's like
depressing.
These godlike figures.
It was so quiet in there afterward. And there's just random old men just yelling at clouds and yelling at Rule and yelling at just anything. And it was just this whole feeling of just why us? Like,
it's
that's
so bad.
The best way I can describe it is like no one really had specific words. Like I'm sitting there in the section and it's just everyone's just dumbfounded. I mean, there wasn't like specific criticisms. It was just like, you cannot even put words on this.
Well, there's all that stuff now. This stuff circulating again of like, okay, it's our 30th 1-score loss in the last 5 years. We have the most 1-score losses in the hit, like over the last 10 years by like 20. Like the next closest person with most 1-score losses is like 10. And like most all 1-score losses are like coin flip games. You usually go like 50%. We've won less than 5% of these 1-score losses. 5 straight this year that we all lost, like not even close. So there's it's like, when's it flip? And if it flips, does it flip quick? Like
there's some black magic going on out there somewhere. I mean, we're running out of explanations. It doesn't matter who the quarterback, offensive coordinator, coach, kicker, the defense. We will find a way to not make
it's also shocking because then even like the defense, who was playing unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. They gave up the first
drive of the second half with 20 seconds left.
It's one play. It was one play. Mm-hmm. The first bad play of the entire game happens on the first play after this, which kind of makes sense. It's like the team's let down or whatever. 22-yard run. That was it. And they kicked field goal. Ball game. But if they had not given that up, this wouldn't make the field goal either.
How about the fact that Iowa was even running the ball there? I mean, like, just
31
like, they
seconds.
had no intention of. They were like,
We're
overtime.
more out.
Yeah, like,
They
we'll
won
stop
overtime.
us. That's fine. We'll run the ball out, or we'll run the clock. But like, then they were like, oh my, I guess we'll just put this backup kicker in that's never kicked in his entire life, and he'll make it.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because you're like, they have what it takes, but it's, and it's, we're not getting blown out, and you're close, and all of those things. The defense played fantastic, but it is a truly cursed program. It's just like, this is the 30th time we've been talking about this in the last 5 years. So like, what happened? Like, think about all those Ross meltdowns, and like, you're like, how did they? We had that, Michigan. It's like, you're about to win the game, and then Adrian fumbles, and the Michigan State punt return touchdown. And like, the list is so long of like, that was an impossible game to lose. All we needed to do was kneel it out, and we would have won. And we've lost 30 straight. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think that, like, before the season, there's probably two groups of people. There's some that were like me and you, and it was like, 8, 9, 10 wins for sure. I still believe that this team could have gotten there with better quarterback play, and you close that turnover gap. But there were just some moments where I think that what Rule is kind of the music he's facing in the offseason is, hey, you kind of were brought here to manage these games in these last.
Yeah.
You feel like you guys put your team in position to do so. I think that my answer is, this is a little more on our players and personnel than it was on them, because when you do break it down, you got built, especially the last 4 games, they were in position to win every single one of those games.
Yeah, but I mean,
you've got 3 game-ending interceptions from Purdy in a row.
It's hard to say because it's
drives given up by the defense on the last possessions. Overtime against Scotty.
Yep.
Last drive against Iowa. The drive from Maryland that came out of absolutely nowhere from their own
90-yard drive.
I mean, you lose to Minnesota 13-10, lose to Iowa 13-10. I mean, these are games that we left a lot of points on the table. We turned the ball over way too many times. Our offense was just not nearly good enough, and our defense was good enough. But if you're going to win with a defensive team like that, you basically just have to, if you're going to beat Iowa, then beat Iowa and capitalize on that field position and kick field goals and take the points that are given to you. I think that we were in position to win these games with how many one possession losses there were. Again, it's just, that's going to be the thing that Rule faces in the offseason the most.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, it's such a confounding question to try to unpack of it's just the same thing. And I think that's what everybody's struggling with.
It's an interesting psychological question. The defense runs out on the field right after Iowa intercepts it. They're playing so well in the second half. They shut them down every single time. I have no idea, but is there something that is in their brains, just
haircut, here it goes again.
Self-fulfilling prophecy of they're just meant to win, and then all of a sudden there he goes running by you for 20-yard gain. Basically, not even there's nothing to that. They've been stopping that all day, and so those are
it's.
I'm
I think that's
do we need a shrink on the sidelines? Do we need do we need an exorcism?
It's really crazy, and they're all good, seemingly good football players. They make big plays throughout the entire course of the game. Defense played well all season. I think that's, I would say, that's maybe we can shift into how the season has gone as opposed to just the Iowa game. I think what everyone is struggling with right now is that was the exact same season we've had for the last 5 seasons. Right. And Well, so that no, but it's as far as like,
Goal-wise, yeah.
well, no, then we're just like Frost put the team in position to win 30 games, and he lost every single one-score game. They were always in position. We almost beat Michigan when they were top 10. We almost beat, we were beating Michigan State. We were beating, Minnesota when like we shouldn't have beat them. And like in Wisconsin, we were like, we lost in the last second. Last year they scored in the last drive of the game after we almost beat Wisconsin. Like Frost had us in position to win 30 games and lost all 30. Rule had us in position to win 9 games this year.
Yeah.
Or 10 games, really. And we finished 5-7. I think that's what's like people are having a hard time with is like in every single time, it's a catastrophic turnover on the last drive of the game. Every time. So it's like, Jeff Sims had it in Minnesota. Purdy did it every single, Purdy played flawlessly the whole game.
Yeah.
Something about that last drive with him when the game's on the line, he can't handle it. And so like that to me is something you either got or you don't. And so like I get it. People like him, everybody gets so like emotionally attached to guys. When the game's on the line, he throws interception. Period. Right? Like
yeah,
three straight games he has lost with the shoulder game
on the roster. That is one thing that I think, like in hindsight, people are going to question a little bit is that he turned out to be the best quarterback on our roster. Like, and he didn't really get that shot. Now I know
I think he was hurt.
The first half of the year. It sounds like, but gosh, he came in and played pretty darn good.
Yeah, he played well, and I think
for him to be hurt.
Let's pivot this into that because this is like the grades that I was thinking about for this.
Yeah,
we'll keep it on the offense first, like the grades for the season, because I think this is where it gets like nuanced and interesting. Of as we were thinking about this, right? It was like let's think about giving grades to the offense, the defense, special teams. Okay. So the offense, like right off the bat, you're thinking like they got an F. But it's a nuance, right? And so I think you kind of got to break it down because you're like, we scored, we made fun of Iowa the entire season, how bad they were. Yeah. They had more, that we like had the exact same amount of points as them.
18.0 points per game for both games.
Exact same. So like we were no better, if not worse than Iowa the entire season. That is so beyond unacceptable. Like the numbers are staggering. Like Bo Nix, I've threw this a few times. Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels both had 50 touchdowns by themselves. And we had 25 as a team. Everybody in the entire team. We had 25 total. So there's this macro of like all these games are close and yada yada, and you're like this is the worst offense in the history of Nebraska football. Period. It's the worst offense in the country, and it's the worst offense in Nebraska football history. But I will pause and say, because we said this like 5 or 6 games ago, and I think about this a lot. Like when we were 5-3, I was like, if Warren was able to take this injury-laden team to a bowl game or in position to win the Big Ten West, he should win Coach of the Year. I think I said that like 4 or 5 games ago. He ended up losing the next 4 games. But like, I think that context is important of like, okay, we lost our top 2 running backs. We lost our top 3 wide receivers. We lost our top tight end. We lost 3 starting offensive linemen. And still we're in position to win 9 games. So there's almost this weird like, you don't want to give the guy a pass because this offense is truly the worst offense I've ever seen in my life. But you're also like, all right, he was doing it with Alex Bullock and, Chuba Purdy was their third. And Harburg was a tight end to start the season. And so you're like, it's sort of hard to tell. Like, I don't know. You give me your grade and your breakdown because that's how I was thinking about it. Like overall, it's an F, period, disaster. But he did well considering you lost 9 starters.
I mean, it was an absurd amount of injuries. And what I would give them is before the season, I think that offense was, I would say that I had less question marks on offense until the season started. And so that's important because the expectation was this was going to be a C or a B offense. And it is probably a D- at best. We were outside the top 115 in basically every single statistical category. And those are not like accidental numbers. Those are, I know we play some salty defenses, but gosh, not salty enough to cause this much havoc. So,
I mean,
I think with this series, the only reason I give a D- and not an F is because you come out and you have basically a second or third. You have all these injuries and did manage to win those games in October against teams that weren't great. You should have beaten them kind of regardless. Probably should have beaten them more handily. But Harburg had never started a game before.
Yeah,
Northern Illinois or Louisiana Tech, I guess, was a start. And he wins you some football games and you win with Harburg. Purdy had never started a game before. He'd thrown a couple of passes. He put you in some okay positions. Lloyd had never played before. He's caught 3 long touchdown passes. Mal Coleman had never played in college before. I mean, so like with that amount of newness, I think, like you said, you give them a little bit of a pass that they managed to win some games. But overall, if you're doing anything more than a D-, I think you're in the wrong, just because even with all of this, there's still some decently talented players, and we didn't do any one thing very well.
No.
We didn't we wanted to be a running team. You saw how it went against Iowa. We averaged like 2 yards a carry. And if you're not going to be a running team, well, are you going to be a passing team? Hell no. So it's just
it's like, what are we? I mean, it's just
considered we had a poor strength of schedule. We did not put up the points that we needed, and we certainly were not good enough in the clutch. It's a D- from me, but with hope for the future. I actually think if we break it down by position a little bit, per position group a little bit further, I think our offensive line, I would say they at minimum held even. If not, I would call that an improvement from last year. That's one positive with a lot of returning talent, including
the jerky, baby. It's working. Pipeline.
And pipeline jerky is
and we got Brinks coming in, like,
yeah. So O-line, I think I would say marginally improved. A lot less like false start penalties, a lot less holding penalties, a lot less just like crippling errors, and a little bit more improved play overall, I would say there. Wide receivers, I mean, God, what do you even do? Like you lose 4 of them. Eric Gilbert is robbing so many vapes. I mean, just every single vape in Nebraska is in his house right now.
Yeah,
you got to
played well.
That was tough. So the receivers and tight ends, Fedoni was solid with, again, super bright position group for the future. You've got Fedoni, you've got Carter Nelson, Ian Flint coming in as well. That's a solid position group. And what I would say, Harburg, let's switch him back out there. Great athlete for next season. Tall, pretty good body, bulk him up, get him at tight end as well. That gives you 3 solid tight end options. So, again, optimistic there. Running backs, what would you give running backs?
It's sort of tough to say because, like, I always struggle because we get like emotionally connected to them, and you're like, I love Emmett Johnson and Anthony Grant's great. I love Gabe Ervin. And I don't think anyone's like, I think they're all good. I don't think anyone when I was preparing for the game and they see Emmett Johnson, I don't think they're like, I think they're like, oh, he's fine. I think he's good. I think he's I'm looking at his stats. He had 400 yards, 5 yards a carry.
For the position he was in, not expecting to get this type of playing time.
Yeah, I think he
looks pretty solid and explosive at times.
I think all 3 of them are good. I think that it's again, like, all this stuff is like relative of like if the or who's 4th? Grant, Johnson, Irvin, and Ramir Johnson.
Emmett and Ramir Johnson, 2 Johnsons.
Yeah, Emmett Johnson and Ramir, Gabe Irvin. I mean, so those guys, they're all good. I think that are any of them a mirror? Not even close, right?
Yeah.
That to me is like it's like kind of what's your, they aren't even like Divine and Zigbo, right? Like if like, you've got a mirror up here, we've got the guys from the 90s who are unbelievable, but like, let's just keep it like normal, like an Amir. Amir could win you a football game, and he could run for 200 yards a game, and he could like, knee state, put the team on your shoulders. Divine and Zigbo had a bunch of those games.
Yeah.
Emmett Johnson's good. I think he's explosive. Yeah. He had 5 yards of carry. He does a lot of good stuff. He's not like, he doesn't have that like it factor of like he's not going to win you a football game, but he's good.
Freshman.
Really good for a freshman.
I have a diamond in the rough player. Like he was, Mr. Football in Minnesota and came down not really expecting to get time this year, was supposed to redshirt and gets thrust into action. He had like very few Power 5 offers, but I think he looks the part. Like he looks like he can definitely be a role player, even if Irvin and Johnson, if they come back okay from their injuries and stuff, I think Emmett Johnson's still going to be getting the ball next year.
Yeah,
position. I think that they're going to target someone in the portal. They lost.
I think that all of these like rankings is why it's like I would agree. I think the offensive line played much better this year. Shout out Pipeline Jerky. Those guys like legitimately were playing well, a lot more consistently. They had a string of 2 games without penalties. Iowa game was kind of a little bit of a mess, but but Danny's good, and you can kind of see it. I think that's the hope of like, we a quarterback away from. I think legitimately, if we had a slightly above average quarterback, you win 8 games this year.
No.
I mean, if the quarterback play is not catastrophically bad, you don't have 30 turnovers. 30 turnovers.
That is true, but I think we're also multiple skill players away from that.
Yeah, no, and I think, I think wide receiver wise, I think
talent next year.
I think Billy Kemp plays well above his like weight class. He's good. I think Jalen Lloyd's got a high ceiling. I like him a lot.
Yep.
I think Washington, if he is able to come back, that's a good one. Mal Coleman has an extremely high ceiling. So I think there's a lot of talent there. I'd still like probably 2 transfers. Give me like a couple 4th or 5th year senior type guys that are a little. We just don't like. It's that the biggest problem with the wide receiver room is there's no guy. There's no guy. Stanley Morgan, probably his first name that comes to my head of like, hey, it's 3rd and 6. Well, it's like 3rd and 6. Like, what are you gonna do? And like, we just didn't have that. I think the passing game really struggled because of that.
Yeah, I would say that overall the line, I'd give them a solid C. We still had quarterbacks running for their lives. We still like when it counted, we weren't able to open running lanes. Like teams like Iowa, we still weren't able to consistently. I mean, we barely broke any big runs or anything against them either. Part of that's on the running backs, but part of it's just, when you're averaging 2 yards of carry, you're getting hit basically at the last scrimmage.
Yeah.
So I give the line a solid C. Receivers, God, we also just had so many tough drops. I'd end up giving them a C-. Running backs, I think we're a victim a little bit of, because you put 9 people in the box, where are you going to go? That kind of thing. We did have a decent running game overall. We had a couple players that were at, like Emmett Johnson. He ended up averaging 4.5 per carry. Gabe Irvin was at 5.1 per carry. Purdy was at 6.2 per carry. So, you had, if Fleeks was 7.6 per carry, like you had some aspect of a running game that you could rely on. I'd end up giving the running backs a B-.
Yeah. I just
know where I end up. And then quarterbacks, good Lord. You just got to go.
F.
You just don't pass F. Do not collect $200.
Yeah, it's like, it's all of that. All of it's relative. It's like, all right, there's the standard of quarterback play that would have been required to win 7 or 8 games. Not even close. It's just not even. They're not even in that same stratosphere. None of these guys, like Jeff Sims, is probably going to be the worst quarterback that ever put on. Was ever. He's got to transfer. Like, there's no way he stays.
Yeah, and I don't know if you heard Rule's presser the other day. It sounded like he was having a funeral for Sims or something. He was like, or like, there's like a breakup song or something. It's like, man, he was a great teammate though. He was. It's just like, well, he's still
He's alive.
Well, technically here.
Yeah, I mean, he just could not you feel bad for the kid that you're like, how did you go from 10,000 yards at Georgia Tech to like you couldn't even take a snap under center? I mean, just unbelievably bad. The worst, interception ratio, and he scored 1 touchdown the entire season. It was on a broken play. Just, I mean, I don't know what happened there. I don't know, like Mitch Sherman had some good stuff.
We're probably gonna have 4 new quarterbacks next year.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think that's.
I honestly want to keep Chuba. I do. I think that he deserves to be developed. Like he's already put enough effort in here. I thought he was going to transfer this last offseason. I would hope for him to stay. He is a very serviceable. He's probably still a backup quarterback, but like if he's gonna,
I'd agree with that. He's a serviceable, strong backup option.
That's how he was. He was a top 10 dual threat quarterback out of high school. He just has not been developed. He's not been given the chances. We'll see if he ends up staying himself too. It seems like everybody and their mother's transferring, but
yeah, I guess that's what can we come back like on the grades first, and we'll talk about the transfer in a second. But because again, like what I come back to is like I think Jeff Sims definitely gets an F and is probably like I mean you can't give him anything better than that. I actually think like with Harburg, it's like kids, he played 8-man football, and like for him to come in and win 4 or 5 games when he was supposed to be a tight end at the start of the season, it's like part of me's like, I don't know, you kind of give the guy like a B to an A, like
the magic
like that's like he's like a kid from Western Nebraska who just like showed up and won a bunch of games, and like he can't throw. It's like
it was pretty cool.
It's like he's like barely even like could play the position. He's supposed to be a tight end. He's just like a good athlete that like just runs straight forward. So part of me is like, it's almost 2 different spectrums. It's like, does he belong as a Big Ten Power 5 quarterback? Absolutely not. But did he do the best he could and like did really well? Yeah, that was like sweet. It was like he won all of our games, like
pretty much
he won every game, and all just purely on effort and grit. And Flutie, you could say the same thing as a 3rd-string quarterback to come in and like play the way he did. Outstanding. Is he a Power 5 quarterback that should be playing and starting in a Big Ten conference? No.
Yeah, I think that Rule is overall like the big picture is in regards to Satterfield. Like, I think you have to give him the benefit of the doubt and say hypothetically, if we had our full roster here and stuff this year, it's probably worth another win or 2. But I don't know that. So next year is going to be, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I go back and forth. Like everybody hates Satterfield piling on and stuff, and I'm not a huge fan. But like, if you watch the replays, there are people open on every play.
Yeah.
And like every running play,
but we're hard.
There's like a wide open hole that they didn't see. Every pass play is like even the interceptions. You're like, oh, that guy was like wide open, and he's just you threw the linebacker instead of like the wide open guy. There's like I don't know.
There were some tough situational game management decisions. I would say as a coordinator right now, he still has not earned more than a D. Anybody that is outside the top 100 in offense in just every single category. You got to earn it for us.
Well, I mean, it's just like the concern.
Some of that's losses, some of that's inexperience, some of it's transitioning to a new regime. But overall, it's like, man, you have got some horrid defenses that you were going against.
Yeah,
you got to figure it out.
Yeah, you got to find out how to win. I mean, but here's there's the grades of like those guys, and it's like it's almost weird to grade them because I'm like, these guys aren't even like, none of these guys are even like real quarterbacks. I can't even believe we have to talk about them. It's like, then you look at the so the quarterback's the portal already, and it's crazy because I think basically every quarterback in the country is going to be in the portal. You're going to have anyone who's back under the NFL.
2% of starting quarterbacks were transfers last year.
You're going to have your pick of whoever you want there's the concern and the opportunity. The concern is they went all in on Jeff Sims, so they have like
Well, he's going to
you
go win the title at Georgia next year.
you question like their talent evaluation, but the optimism side is you're like, all right, you look at the portal. You got Will Howard, straight out of K-State. That's a big one. I think that's like number one that people are excited about. Riley Leonard's probably going to go from Duke to Notre Dame, it sounds like. Tyler Van Dyke, the kid from Miami. I don't love him. Tyler Shaw from Texas Tech, pretty good player.
Yeah.
DJ Ukulele, Blake Shapen from Baylor, Nate Johnson, Gary Bohannon, Grayson McCall. I mean, there's dudes in the portal that have thrown for 10,000 yards, which we learned our lesson with Jeff Sims. He's broken me. I don't even know.
Is that good?
I don't even know if that matters anymore. But like the point being is there's like real quarterbacks with real experience in the portal, and we don't need to like develop Harburg to try to pretend like he's going to be something good, because he's not. Like that, I guess I always come back to this thing Mike Leach said. I like hanging on to this a lot. Mike Leach, RIP, but like totally brilliant developer. He was like, you can't coach accuracy, and he had this whole like diatribe. If you like look it up on YouTube, it's like 10 minutes long. Where it's basically like, when I start recruiting kids, I want the kid who's like 5, 6, 7 years old who throws a snowball at the stop sign and can hit it from 30 yards away. Like he's that accurate, and he's accurate in high school. If he's accurate in high school, he's going to be accurate in college. And if he's not accurate in high school, and if he's not accurate in college, he's not all of a sudden going to get accurate. Like an inaccurate college passer is not all of a sudden going to get accurate in the NFL. Like that's just not how it works. And so that to me is, I always like look at these guys. I'm like, okay, show me your accuracy of your high school career, of your college career. But like our guys are wildly inaccurate. They're just not. It's just not. You can't coach Harburg to like see the field in one off season. That's just, it's not how it works. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm clearly over them. But like Harburg completed 49% of his passes. Purdue was 54. Sims threw a bajillion interceptions. But these guys in the portal are like 10,000 yard passers with 60 to 70% completion percentage. Get one of these guys.
Portal season is perfectly timed with the Christmas season. It's just, this is what gets you through the holidays. Is like these are just like shiny ornaments on the tree, and you're looking at them, and the second you land one, you put it on top of the tree for everyone to see, and you invite your friends and family over and say, look at this shiny thing. This next.
All right, I've got some hypotheticals that I just thought of.
This is it.
I got some hypotheticals that I just thought of that we haven't thought of. We talked about. So, rule came out this week, and this made like national headlines. But it was like an elite quarterback costs between $1 to $2 million per year, right?
That's so much money.
Yeah, a lot of money, but it's not. It's not our money. But so here's the question: is I'm gonna break it down a few different ways. One, do you pay the money for one elite quarterback? Say you have the $2 million or 1.5, whatever it is.
All right.
Do you get the elite quarterback one?
Yep.
Who could get hurt? McNamara got hurt in Iowa. Like any of these guys gets hurt.
Yep.
Or do you try to get 3 $250,000 quarterbacks that are all fine, or 1 to 2 of them? Like, if I give you I'm going to give you a pool of $1.5 million. Yeah. What are you going to do with it?
Specifically for Nebraska, I would take 2. I would take 2. Not 3. I think Danny Kalen's got potential. He's a development project. You'll have him on the roster next year. I think you try and keep Chubba Purdy around, and then I think you pick up 2 more quarterbacks. The reason would just be the one stud is exactly that. The biggest thing I think is, I don't know that if we know what we want to be with the quarterback quite yet.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm interested to see who they go after in the portal, because they went after Sims, and obviously he's got legs, and he's a fantastic athlete. But the best offenses that Satterfield has had were when Rattler was just firing on all cylinders last year. And so I don't know.
I'll take Rattler.
Where they want to go. I think the obvious safe option is someone like Will Howard that has come from like, okay, yeah, he's run RPO offenses, like he can he can move the ball in multiple ways. I think that obviously everyone wants an elite dual threat. But there's not that many out there compared to those that can basically just sling the ball. So I think it's actually going to be pretty telling, like what kind of offense they want to be based on who this next transfer quarterback is.
Yeah, it's a good point. So like Kalen has a
take 2 for the very reason that I want competition I want to know who is going to be the most elite.
Yeah.
As opposed to putting all my eggs in one basket. There's so many good options out there. There's so many
good options.
Like former 5-star quarterbacks that aren't going to be $1 million. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who they do end up taking. But yeah, that's my answer, and I would stick to it. The other part of things you got to consider, like, okay, you sign someone for $1 million or whatever, and the third string receiver is making 10,000. Like, what does that do for your locker room or the guys that are there? That's a tough one.
But that's the reason that
it's all about development. So it would be
that's the reason that every single player in the country is going to go into the portal to find their true free agent market value. And they're going to figure out what people are willing to pay for them and all this stuff. But no, it's an interesting predicament because I err on the side of give me the elite quarterback. I just think you look at every team in the top 10, top 15. I mean, Bo Nix changed the entire trajectory of Oregon. Jaden Daniels is the best player in college football. Jalen Milroe down at Alabama. Like every single one of these guys has an absolutely elite quarterback. Like did you watch the end of the Alabama game?
Oh yeah,
unbelievable.
Yeah,
I mean, like that type of a play that Milroe made.
Yep.
Just sitting in the pocket, like, hey, it's 4th and 31.
I'm just laser beam.
Just gonna throw an absolute dart to the back corner of the end zone, and the only guy that can catch it is my guy, and gonna win the game. It's just that to me is like the mid-level average quarterback.
Most important position in all of sports. It deserves to be the most expensive in the portal, but I struggle with the distribution of money these days is tough. I mean,
it's crazy. Yeah, you
got to re-recruit your own players too. I mean, Rule's got an uphill battle right now to keep everybody on campus.
But so does everybody though.
Lloyd from saying, hey, I put my speed on display. No one gave me a Power 5 offer last year. What about now?
Yeah. I think it's
recruiting.
I mean, you hear any of the coaches, they're all freaking out about it, and they should be. I think every single player on their roster is looking and is out there.
He's got his work cut out for him, honestly.
That's what I think it's.
And when
I think that but again, I always come back to the excitement for me in the transfer portal is the opportunity of you could flip your roster instantly.
Yeah.
And there's
4 jobs like Colorado.
Yeah. What a disaster that is.
You could be Colorado.
But I mean, you can I guess you even take the pre-portal era. You had to wait. You're but wait until this class that's coming in 3 years when they become juniors. It's almost this 5-year cycle. And now you can just be like, nah, I'm just gonna get the best quarterback. I'm gonna get this wide receiver, and I'm gonna get this running back. And you're all of a sudden oh, okay. I don't know. I just think there's a ton of good football players out there.
I'm end up with. I think that we are going to have a heavy focus on skill players. I think that how it's going to end up breaking down as we go after 1, probably 2 quarterbacks. I do think we go after a running back unless we get another freshman in the if we are able to flip somebody. Losing Kawan Lacey, I mean, he sounds like he might even go to Bama.
Nice.
That's a tough recruit. And then, you lose Carlin Jones to Ohio State, but different story. And then I think we're going to go after, I would still expect us to go after another O-lineman, although we got some solid recruits coming in to beef that up and a good amount of returning. And that's probably how it's going to break down on offense is 2 receivers, 1 or 2 quarterbacks, probably 1 or 2 O-linemen, and then maybe a running back.
I think it's just hard when you look at our roster of even if all these guys come back, they're all hurt. Like
off injury. Yeah.
every single one of them. It's like, all right, IGC, he'll come back. Like he's coming off a major injury. Marcus Washington is coming off a major injury. Like Gabe Irvin's coming off a major injury. Ramir Johnson's coming back for his like 19th year after his like 9th major injury. It's like
we get it. It's our whole offense. Yeah.
but I feel like these guys aren't like, it's like, we weren't getting like 18-year-old Ramir Johnson. We're getting like 25-year-old Ramir Johnson with 4 knee surgeries. This is like
just hobbling.
Yeah, they're just, it's like these guys are just like limping through their careers, and now they like
it's on
insurance.
Hibon he's using a scooter 6 months a year right now.
Yeah, it's like these guys can like barely walk, and we're like, nah, they're gonna come back. Like, well, we want them.
All right, on to the defense grades.
So defense is like I had an A, like she's like, I don't know, they're an A. This is the best defense ever, but I think they're probably maybe like A minus B plus.
Yeah, putting them more in B range.
Yeah, I mean, because the only hesitation I have on it, because again, it's on for me. It's on the context of like Frost's defense were so bad, that like, and he just never cared about defense, and they were just never good ever. That the fact that we had 4 or 5 games where we held them to under 13, 14, 15 points is incredible.
Yeah.
But they weren't, but they gave up a lot of bad game losing drives. So it's I don't know. And again, if you're like ranking is against like the Ndamukong Suh years, Ndamukong Suh won games by himself. Like, he's like, I'm just going to win this game and I'm going to force a turnover. I'm going to get a sack. I'm going to force, they weren't quite that level, but they're pretty darn good.
Good enough to win you games. Yeah. The reason I would end up, because I just love Nebraska football, I give everyone pluses on random things, but I'll give them a B plus. The reason is like, it just comes down to the competition that we ended up playing against.
Yeah.
And like, I think that our numbers just end up getting inflated by the fact that the Big Ten West
is so bad.
There's a bunch of toddlers running around chasing each other. So we played two decent offenses the entire year.
You got crushed.
Colorado and Michigan.
Yeah.
Colorado puts up 36. Michigan puts up 45.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I say, gosh, how good are they going to stack up against, USC, Washington, Oregon? I would say that I have reason to believe that we'd be holding them to less than 30 based on this season. Now, I think that they can keep getting better. I think they will keep getting better. I think they are a vast improvement, and they are my biggest hope for the future, for sure. And the number one priority of the offseason, other than a transfer portal QB, is lock up Tony White. Do not let him leave.
Yeah, it seems like so San Diego State didn't go for him, USC didn't go for him.
Good.
It seems good.
He's not ready.
Yeah, I agree. Staying here for 3 years. I have similar concerns. I also wonder if like we lose Luke Reimer's bad, but you keep Ty Robinson, you keep Nash. Like, I don't know. It's interesting because I'm like, what does Rule try to do? And I'm very okay if he's trying to build from the defense out. That's great.
Yeah. So defensive wise, and you still have a chance to return Gifford. Like he could come back for another year here. But you just had so many players that you were waiting to see their potential, and then it's almost like Tony White shows up and he's like, "Oh, you can be good. Go ahead."
He's good.
So Omar Brown, I mean, like he had a great season. I mean, he was second on the team in tackles. Javen Wright, I mean, we've been waiting for him. He's a junior.
Yeah,
he had 51 tackles. He's tied second on the team in tackles there too. John Bullock, former walk-on, like he turns out to have a great year. So I think that like on the one hand, we have players that were maximizing their potential, and that's what we wanted to see on offense, and we did see it on defense. And you have freshmen that are giving you huge hope for the future. Cam Lenhart, Vince Will, like these guys are solid players that are going to continue to get better. You'd heard a lot of.
I mean, he was a great player.
Jamari Butler last year. Suddenly this year, he's an impact player. You heard a lot about Nash Hutmacher going into last year. He was all right. This year, he's one of the best in the conference. Ty Robinson, suddenly he just is. I mean, he was a man possessed. It was crazy.
Played really well.
Luke Reimer, I mean, he's hitting his potential. Even Henrich had a pretty solid year as well. I mean, so all of these guys, anyways, I guess what I'd break it down to is we need to keep him around because we need some consistency there. We need to keep developing. The depth there is far better than it is on offense. And we need to keep every single human that is on that defense around for another year.
Yeah.
Defensive line, I'd probably give them an A-.
Yeah.
Only problem with them was getting to the quarterback in
Right.
key moments. That was probably it. But the run defense was
They did.
pretty nasty.
It's like I'm like thinking through my head, like they did enough to win every game this season except for Michigan and Colorado. You know, in like, you know, they were there and like there's a back-breaking interception in Minnesota, back-breaking. You know, Iowa, it's like Tommy Hill intercepts the ball, 30 seconds left. If you're Tommy Hill, you're like, that's a game-winning interception. Oh, no, we lost. You know, it's like, oh, wait. Like, you know, they got to hate the offense. I go back and forth because I think they allowed the touchdown to Minnesota in overtime, or excuse me, Wisconsin in overtime. They allowed, you know, Maryland drove the field 90 yards. But up until that point,
yep,
you held, you know, Tua's little brother to nothing. He couldn't do anything all game, and then they gave up an inexcusable drive. They shut down Iowa completely. They shut down Wisconsin completely. But
I think the D-line was my concern going into the year, and now I think it's one of our strengths going into next year.
I'm super nervous about losing Reimer.
Yeah, linebackers going to be somewhere where I think we need to hit the portal up a little bit there, because you've got a couple key pieces coming back. Reimer's tough to replace, though. Bullock could come back as well. That'd be fantastic if he did. But that's going to be another spot where you see us hit the portal. I'd also like to see us go after like an elite pass rusher. It'd be fantastic. Yeah. But otherwise, you've got Jamari Butler that should be back again. Henrich is done, so he's out of here. Reimer is done, so he's out of here. You've got some immediate needs that are probably going to be there, though. And I think you need to see probably a solid defensive end that comes in, someone that can get to the passer, somebody that's going to complement Prince Will. Van Poppel, Lenhart on the outsides. MJ Sherman, hopefully he stays around. He should be solid, but then we got to add to that depth a little bit. And then the final thing is our secondary. Secondary's tough. Like they made some. I mean, Tommy Hill had a very up and down season, like getting burned 1 minute and then picking things off the next. I guess I would give them I think I'd give the secondary the lowest grade. Our pass defense ended up being the worst part of our team, and that's kind of the breakdown there, and why I think we end up going after a linebacker and some elite defensive backs in the portal, maybe a pass rushing defensive end, and then that's it. I think then we're just fixed.
That's it. I mean, I just think there's an element of it's truly the first season, you know, in 10 years. It's just crazy how different offensive defense was of like, in first time in like 10 years, probably since those 2 years, that every time I went out there, Wisconsin went out there, Maryland went out there, I was like, they're not doing anything. I haven't felt like that ever. Yeah. And so it's almost like it was more shocking when you're like, wait, Maryland scored a touchdown? Like, I can't believe they just did that. Like, Iowa kicked a field goal. Like, I can't believe like we gave up so few points that you were shocked when something happened. For us, you were shocked when they stopped something. You're like, oh man, you know, we had some of those shootouts that we had with Frost were like 52-49 type shootouts. On the flip side, on the offense, it was like I was so shocked when we scored, you know, one of our few touchdowns. So it was a weird, like, it's like, can we just be in the middle of like, you know?
No, we can never have such things. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at on that.
How would you grade rules first season?
Yeah. Well, special teams first. C.
F.
Okay, actually, yeah. All right. So here's the thing special teams needs to do in a game. Make field goals. F. You're right there. Return punts. F. Okay, so you're right there too.
0 for 2. Kick returns. F.
Kick returns. F. Block to kick.
Block's kick.
That was sweet. Little upgrade. And we had a couple of crippling turnovers on punt return. So yeah, I'm downgrading. I'm down to a D.
Yeah. I will say it's again, I feel like I'm like broken records. Like it's all relative. We didn't have. It's like Frost was so bad at special teams. Like Frost couldn't make PATs.
Yes.
And like we couldn't punt. We were getting punts blocked, and
we also averaged 40 yards per punt. 4-0.
This year?
Yeah, whole year.
Yeah.
It's not great.
I think that again, like I actually think special teams was like sort of an improvement from Frost because Frost was like
he didn't participate. Non-participant.
He just didn't even whenever we practice special teams. Like we couldn't kick PATs, punters didn't even know where to go. Like that was the most shocking, the terrible special teams. This special teams wasn't like they weren't that bad. Like we got punts off. I don't think we had a punt blocked all year. We didn't have a kick blocked all year. Like we didn't have like game changing turnovers and that, they didn't return a punt all year. Like Frost had the game losing punt returns multiple times, like that's crazy. But they also didn't do anything.
No. Well, I mean, yeah, we still had a couple of muffs and then like Ethan Nation fumbles against Iowa on his.
That's true. That's why Nastry about Ethan Nation.
Even though we blocked 2 field goals against Iowa. There was just a lot of up and down.
I guess I'm not giving enough credit. 2 block field goals against Iowa plus the block kick against Purdue.
There were some
those are better
plays.
Ooh, better than nothing.
Here's our punt return averages, which what really brings things down.
Averages? What's
Billy Kemp,
average 0?
Billy Kemp had 6 returns for 24 yards. Ethan Nation had 7 returns for 23 yards. So that's a 4.0 and a 3.29. Tommy Hill, 1 return, 1 yard. That's a 1.0. Alex Bullock, 2 returns, 0 yards, 0.0.
Mr. Blutarski.
0.0.
I mean, but it's again that comes down to like, what are you getting from the portal? Can we get one athlete that knows how to return a kick?
We have him on the team. He just got to do it.
It's like I think Bushini was probably like the biggest disappointment of the year of like,
yep.
That is when, everybody mocks Iowa, you make fun of them and like, they deserve all the ridicule. That dude puts the ball on the 5-yard line every time he kicks it. That is diabolical that he's able to do that. Bushini is like, if you're on the 50-yard line, he'll punt it to the 20. You're like, what are you doing?
Like,
just go for
it. In the last 4 games, all losses, his punting averages were 39.8, 35.2 against Wisconsin.
Just go for it.
35 yards.
Just go for it. It's like that.
You want to see close to 50, 35. Oof.
In this conference,
Michigan State 35.
In this conference with the low scoring games and the way that you grind it out, you need an elite punter.
Yeah.
And
if you're going to play
Iowa won 10 games without gaining first downs and an elite punter. It's crazy. But
yes.
Yeah, I mean, our special teams wasn't even a thing. It's like there's no,
wasn't enough to flip any of these games, and in fact, it probably ended up hurting us because we couldn't hit field goals when it really mattered. We couldn't return punts when we needed to flip fields without an offense. Like, you got to try and find any single yard you can. We didn't make a difference on kick returns. We sometimes had some field goal blocks that were super clutch. Like that's kind of the summary of the season. And downgraded C to a D. I might even go D minus now that I'm saying it, but
I mean, it's truly like your defense is the only thing that gets anything like remotely passing. If there just was no redeemable qualities on offense, so Yeah, that's there's not.
Oh man. All right, let's on to the coaches. Yeah, Rule overall. Huh. So where are you at? Year
You go
one.
first.
I think I am at. He was dealt a very rough deck, starting basically in August. If we do this as a full calendar year, starting from when he was hired, he won the first 8 months of his after being hired. I mean, he won us easily another offseason national title.
Yeah.
I don't think it was ever in doubt. And it was probably one of our most commanding yet. I mean, even the fact that we were in any sort of Big Ten title discussions and stuff, despite the year we had, that was all great. The things started to fall apart. Really, at like that Minnesota game, we started to have some creeping questions. Colorado, you already had some people saying, "What in the world is different this year?" And then the other side saying, "All right, let's be patient." We were patient. We looked better against Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech with a tight end that had converted to quarterback. That's a tough deck of cards that you're being dealt there. For your first season, that your transfer QB that you had honed in on and wanted to basically stake your season on just did not work out. And he was a little hurt, but also a little bit benched. And so you're benching your transfer quarterback.
Yeah.
I actually give him props for doing that. He made the changes that were needed, and he put us in position to win games. Life was pretty good when we were 5-3. The last 4 games, I think he started to lose some believers, but it is absolutely, without a doubt, there is so much hope already for next year because of everything that he says in press conferences and everything that he believes and everything that he's put on paper all seems to say he knows exactly what we need to be doing. I mean, he'll come out and say it. He knows we need a transfer quarterback. He's already saying he's part of words to Jeff Sims. He knows that Tony White should stay. He wants the best for him, but he's going to do everything that he can to keep him around. He knows our offense is not good enough. He's going to do what he can to improve things. So I don't think there's any reason that I have lost any hope yet. Every single thing that he says, I'm just like, it's like I'm in church and just giving him amens. I will continue to believe in him as a coach. But this next season, a lot of this is going to come down to what kind of QB are you getting? Are you going to be stubborn and not fire no coordinator if things still go wrong? And that's where this offseason becomes like super, super essential, is because he was dealt a crappy hand this year. But if you plug those gaps, if you recruit well, if you pour the money in like you say you're going to do, you pour the effort in like you say you're going to do, this is definitely, I see no reason to give him anything lower than a B or a B plus based on the cards that he's been dealt.
Yeah. I think you kind of hit a lot of the points. I struggle with this because like when you're coming off 4 straight losses, I'm like, it's such a missed opportunity. He missed such an opportunity to win one of those freaking games and go to a bowl game. And so it's hard for me to kind of give him anything above like a C when you're like, in that specific context where you're like,
these teams suck.
These teams suck, and you just win one game, and you're going to Detroit or you're going to Nashville to play like
the
Music City Bowl,
Wasabi Bowl,
something to, because like think about, I keep thinking about like we won that the Iowa game last year. God, it was just like that was all this fan base needed to just like be like, yes, we are back, we've got this thing, the boys are still rallying together. And he instead lost, finished with a like, oh my God, like this guy's, can't get it together. But I think again, so that's like the immediate reaction is like, C, what a failed missed opportunity. The broader probably ranking. I kind of am like even trying to figure out what Rule is, right?
Yeah.
So I think he's an elite motivator, right? I think that like, if we die, we die. Like he's got this potential to like, he's a perfect motivator for 18 to 22-year-old, or now it's like 18 to 25-year-old kids. Perfect. And I think that's his thing because he's like, it seems like he's not the offensive guru. He's not a defensive guru. He doesn't seem to be like an offensive line guru. He doesn't seem to be a defense. He kind of doesn't have like a thing besides being the motivator. He's not a good in-game manager. He doesn't seem to like, so you're kind of like, what's his thing? And his thing is he's fantastic motivator. He's great with the media. He's great with alumni. And so like if he's a CEO coach, great. So I think in that instance, you're like, all right, I still believe, I'm not backing down that he's not the guy. I think the concerns are exactly what you're saying. Is like he doubles down on Jeff Sims, and you're like, was he dealt a bad hand? Yeah. He also didn't do much to like fix it in the offseason. And again, I'll give him a pass because it's like you're coming straight from the NFL. You just got fired. He doesn't have like all of his recruiting ties in a row to like lock down a bunch of like quick transfers. So he like quickly got Jeff Sims. He quickly got Fleeks. Fine. Right. He got Kemp, fine. He got a couple guys. So I kind of give him a little bit of a pass because part of me is like, dude, why didn't you just get better players in the offseason? Maybe he didn't have enough time. He seemed to be really content with what he had. So thinking that, I'd like, you give him this offseason. If like he loads up on talent, it's like, yeah, dude, like he can recruit. Getting bricks is massive.
The 23rd overall class right now, and
he can recruit and he can recruit and he can motivate, and that's incredible. And if we're just we're
26 commits.
We're like 11 points away from being an 8-win team, but he's gonna have to figure it out quick because in next year's season sets up really well for that. You could start 7-0, like if you don't screw up the Colorado game, But so I don't know. I guess I'm like somewhere in the like, it's a weird C+, B-, and I give him like a C+ just because I'm like, God, you could have given us, like selfishly, given the HuskGuys just win
something,
and like we would pop it to the moon. But now it's like you can't say anything on the internet, and people are just like, shut up, God, he stinks. You're like, oh my God, dude! Like all you have to do is win. Like, how do you lose all of your games in November? That's like almost impossible.
Undefeated October and defeated November is pretty tough to do. I think the things that are giving me a lot of hope is you lose this much talent and you still manage to put together, at least scrap together some wins by completely changing what you thought you were going to do before the season. And
I think that's exactly it. Is that to me is like what it's what we said at the midway mark.
Shift.
Where we're like, if this guy can make a bowl game with basically walk-ons, what will happen if he actually gets good players?
Yeah, that should be awesome.
But like that's the biggest hope of this whole thing of like if you can win 5 games and have
I love our walk-ons, but they are.
It's not. There's no. I'm not trying to disparage the walk-ons, but like you need elite players to compete in the Big Ten, and he was able to win all the games in October playing with guys who were barely recruited, very lightly recruited. And if you all of a sudden get elite talent in, does that is that a floodgates opportunity? So like, but what offenses you run? I don't even know. It's like, I don't know.
That's what's going to be like. For this offseason, and I mean, every offseason is essential, and we will continue to win every single title if it's under our control. But it starts with, like, who are you? The portal is there to target your immediate needs. It's not like your depth comes from your freshman incoming recruiting class. Like, these are guys I'm going to develop. These are guys that we want them to come back for 2-3 seasons, and you re-recruit those. That's where we are going to end up winning a title is number one. If you don't see, 50 players jumping ship and starting their own hashtag, we leaving like Colorado last year. Yes. Number two, can you lock in Tony White? Would be absolutely huge. And it sounds like he's going to be out on the recruiting trail this week. So I'm hopeful that he is coming back. Number three, can you hit those portal targets that you need? And then number 4, you lock in. I mean, you got 26 recruits that are believers in Rule right now with the top 25 class and a losing record, and we haven't been to a bowl in 7 years. Like, holy cow! If we do start stringing together some wins, for God's sake.
Well, and that's, I mean, I'm skipping ahead. No, like,
you can do that.
Look at next year's schedule. Here's a wild one. So UTEP's the first game. They just fired their head coach. Second game is Colorado, who's in a complete free fall.
Dumpster fire.
Third game is Northern Iowa. Fourth game is Illinois, who we were able to beat this year. Miraculously, Purdue, we beat this year. Hopefully they don't get any better. Rutgers, hopefully they don't get any better. Indiana has a new coach. And then, so you could be 7-0 going into Ohio State, but then you go Ohio State, UCLA, USC, Wisconsin, Iowa. So you could start 7-0 and finish 7-5 again. But that 7-0 will be sick.
Yeah. Colorado's recruiting class is 65th.
Well, they lost their top two top quarterback recruits, their 2 top wide receiver recruits, and their offensive coordinator and their tight ends coach in like 48 hours. It's been like diabolical.
They're broke. And NIL's broke.
We got to wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
I got to slate. What off season wise? So here's stuff I'm pumped for portal season. Freaking love it. It is my favorite time of year. I'm honestly like relieved in some instances. Like I think going to a bowl game would have been incredible. I'm relieved in the sense that we don't have to like.
This should be Matt Rule's worst season in Nebraska, and if that's the case, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. I mean, he's gonna have some. He unfortunately, I don't know. It's like
it sucks right now. Let me
freaking Braun,
people.
It's killing me. Like what Braun did at Northwestern. He shows up in September, and they're like, "Hey, you're the head coach now," and like he'd only been coaching there for 6 months. None of those guys are his players, and he won 7 freaking games, and now he's a god. Like that, he had Rule had such an opportunity to win 2 more games. He wins Coach of the Year, right? Like he becomes, and instead it's like, I don't know what's going on. So I think that's like the disappointing part. I think, but I do think like even though Colorado beat the hell out of us, like we're a much, I think, a better foundation. I agree that he built a better foundation than them, clearly. Right. Like, but it's just tough to say. So I'm excited about the portal season. I'm excited about transfers. I'm excited about everything, all the potential coming out of it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm like,
he's a businessman that at heart, he already, like, even though the portal never existed when he last coached in college, he already seems like he has got a pretty good grip on this. And I think
the NFL helps him, man.
Recruiting, he understands that there is a business behind this. He understands that he's basically contracting players. And for him he already in one season last year, he kept so many players around that were on the fence. So I am expecting he's going to be able to re-recruit pretty well. We're going to lose some players. It's going to be tough. But if he did it last year in a transition year, I think if these players are brought in, they're coming back. We've got 26 recruits right now. We're sitting pretty right there. We're going to add in the portal again. This is the most wonderful time of the year if you can get past the fact that we're not playing in a bowl game. So there's so much to look forward to now.
Yeah. Well, you can quickly write that off with like, I don't want to play the bowl game anyways.
It's just, they're overrated.
Wasting time. We didn't need practices, No,
we want to go to Detroit in December.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to the HuskGuys podcast. This has been a good season. We'll continue to do some stuff in the offseason. We got to figure it out. But thanks for listening. It's been fun to kick this thing off. We'll catch you guys later.